All right, folks, it's 11 o'clock and time for the second half of our presentations for today. And this one's going to be just a great segue from Marianne and Maureen. I wrote down in Maureen's presentation, 85% of customers said they need moderate to full assistance to change out their landscapes. Well, Daniel is our guy, and A&M Agrilife and Water University. I just feel like I was feeling like there's going to be so many connections here based on that data that Maureen and Marianne just presented. Let me introduce Daniel. He is one of the state's leading horticulturists. He provides professionals and the public with the most current research-based information on resource-efficient and water-conserving landscape management. He specializes in native plants, edible landscaping, rainwater harvesting, and utilizing landscapes as habitat for beneficial wildlife. Everything people want out of their landscapes. I'm going to turn it over to Daniel, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Jennifer, and thank you all for sticking with us today. Really have enjoyed the presentation so far. Well, yeah, let's dig into a subject that I'm really passionate about, and that is tapping into community pride to grow water efficient landscapes here in North Texas. Well, our goal of Water University is to shape perception and to change behavior. And there's a couple different ways we do that. One thing Jennifer alluded to is we like to provide resources to homeowners, kind of the basic folks, whether they're more experienced gardeners or just kind of branching out into gardening. We offer a series of classes to homeowners. Those used to be face-to-face classes. We love all of our partners here in North Texas and across the state, where we would do classes, ranging from native and adapted plants to composting, DIY drip irrigation classes, rainwater harvesting, really anything that kind of touches the nexus of water and plants, we try and hit home. Now, what we found is a lot of people are less excited about the classes that we advertise as water conservation or how we can save water, but they're really enthusiastic about the classes where we can grow beautiful flowers for pollinators, or if we can grow edible plants in their landscape. And so we've tried to tap into some of those hottest trends that we see in landscape design. Now, where we see a lot of pride, especially in the suburbs and here in the heart of Dallas, it's folks that love their lawns. And that's something that I think we've all kind of dealt with. A lot of times lawns get this kind of stigma of that they're water hogs, and not only are they wasting water when they're over applying it, but sometimes that can contribute to different pest and disease problems. People are over applying fertilizers and pesticides, and of course that's contributing to stormwater. So if we can educate people, let them know, hey, this is actually, if I'm teaching a class in the city of Prosper, we're talking about where their water resources are coming from, or in Central Texas or wherever. So a lot of times people don't know when they're turning on the tap where that water is actually coming from. And then kind of talking about a holistic approach of if we can each make in our communities, and even if it's just you and your neighbors, making a few steps to both protect our water and conserve our water, then hyper locally, your neighborhood is the one that gets to benefit from that. And the neighborhood beside you does that, and the neighborhood beside you, then collectively as a region, then we can all kind of get some of those benefits. And so we do encourage people not to rip out the entirety of their lawn. On average, we get about 37.54 inches of rain here in North Central Texas. And a lot of our warm season turf grasses can really grow well for most of the growing season without a lot of supplemental irrigation. But if we can encourage people to reduce those turf grass areas and then to increase the landscape beds that they've planted native and adapted plants, that's something that a lot of folks get excited about. Sometimes lawns are kind of, to some people, kind of a little bit blah. And if you show the showy flowers and shrubs and trees, then there is a lot of benefit. And of course, that paired with pervious hardscape that can infiltrate that water. Now, we do hit home with native and adapted plants a lot, but people think that native and adapted plants are yucca and cacti and all these drought and desert plants are the only ones that they can show. And so we're kind of digging out of a hole, showing them that, hey, no, you can have lush, vibrant landscapes with a number of different native and adapted plants that are lush and vibrant. Now, it's one of our benefits, and I hopefully a little bit of job security, is that we see some of the landscape trends are really some of the stuff that we want to teach folks. This is a recent study by the American Society of Landscape Architects that show that people are really interested in native and adapted plants, low maintenance landscapes, especially from the millennial crowd and the baby boomers, reduced lawn area that we talked about. We're seeing right now some of the highest trends, people getting back to growing their own food. Since we've been kind of locked down in the pandemic, more and more people are starting vegetable gardens and food forests, and certainly we want to encourage them and provide them the resources to do that. Composting, organic practices, rainwater harvesting. And so we have all these resources on our website that people can kind of go to with a click of the button, find everything that they want to know. We teach the practice a landscape CPR. So, the C is conservation, the P is permeability, and the R is retention. If we can slow sink and spread the water on their landscapes, we're reducing the demand on the municipal supply. Now, we've done a lot of online resources, but people actually like the physical tools we found. And so one of our projects that we've developed with our partners in our top 100 plants for North Texas, this is like, playing cards, but it's got a picture of the plant on the front, and then on the back, what the height requirements are, sunlight, water requirements, if it attracts pollinators and native birds. So that's a great tool as well. We also hand out in our classes and have available free to download is our DIY guides. And now we have over 20 of these. Most of them that focus on plants have a plant list on the back so they can actually physically go to the local nurseries, pick the right plants. We hear that time and time again. Just tell us what to plant. Now, we used to teach these classes again with our over 60 partners in the Metroplex. And, we'd get, anywhere from 30 to 300 people in the face-to-face classes. But in the past few months, we've kind of really shut that down to do more virtually. We've tried a few different platforms there. And surprisingly, we've increased our reach with some of our classes averaging 1,500 people attending, and the highest we've seen is about 3,000 folks listening in from all around Texas and even neighboring states. So we do try and be active with social media. Now, one of the projects that we were really happy, and this just went off, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, is our You Planet program. And so we partner with local water suppliers as well as our cities and different groups to kind of cultivate a kit or a garden in a box. Now, this isn't necessarily a new idea, but it is new to our region. And when folks were telling us, just tell us what to plant, we selected a number of different species in this round that are beneficial to pollinators. All but one of these plants is native. They're all native to North America. They have different bloom seasons. All of these are perennials and low water users or water efficient plants once established. We also partner with another project, the Citizen Science Project, so people could sign up and actually monitor those plants as they grow, what pollinators were actually visiting those, so we could collect some data on that with our partners. So folks get 32 plants in the box. It's about a 2 foot by 1 foot box. There's 3 plant by number options for folks to choose. So the designs are designed by our in-house landscape designer who does that professionally. Covers 125 foot area. So we say it's turf buyback without the buyback. We're encouraging people and teaching them how to remove that turf and plant these native plants. Most of these plants are going to do best in full sun, although last spring we did do a shade option and an edible option as well. They're all locally grown here. We partner with a local grower. In addition to that, we also have a guide that basically just lays down the descriptions of all the plants. It's kind of a how-to plant by number scenario. These are the designs. They're very colorful. It's, again, a plant by number. So, the red plant tag with the number 2, they know that that plant goes in the design with the red circle and the number 2. So it's kind of easy for anybody to do. We encourage it as a family activity. We saw a lot of millennials that were actually going through our drive-through contactless pickup. We did over 500 of these boxes here, and really are encouraged by that project and hope that it will grow and do a good job of establishing community pride as we go forward here in North Texas. And if anybody has any questions about anything, I know I kind of hit hard there with a lot of different subjects, but if there's anything that I can do to address any of your questions, I'd be happy to do that if we have time.
Thank you, Daniel. Just to take you back really quickly, can you talk about what CPR is again? It was, I know there's a breakdown of, conservation and permit. So can you kind of take a little bit of time, Daniel, and talk that through with us, please?
Sure. So, a lot of landscapes, and we actually teach a whole program. It's an hour-and-a-half long program on landscape CPR. But sometimes landscapes, if it's people who are in an older home and their initial landscape, was planted 30, 40 years ago, maybe it's kind of a little bit drab. We also unfortunately see in a lot of newer subdivisions, landscapes going in that are 90% turf grass, and they're not necessarily choosing the right plant material. And so that's basically just an outline of how people can get maybe a little bit of shock of life to the landscape to kind of make different practices where we would keep conservation in mind. So utilizing drip irrigation or soaker hose, multi-stream rotors, incorporating rainwater harvesting is something that we really focus on to reduce the demand on municipal supply. We've done over 20,000 rain barrel that we've introduced into the community. And then the P is permeability. So that's improving soil health, incorporating compost and mulch. We know one study shows that 2 to 4 inches of mulch can actually increase infiltration of water during rain events or sprinkler events up to 60%, reduce that water that is runoff. And then the R is permeability. So, really just saying, or the R is retention rather, and that's basically just being greedy with our water. People see in the rain barrels, people see that the rain barrels fill up fast and then they overflow. And once they see that phenomenon, they think, hey, I want to be greedy with my water. I want to slow it, sink it, spread it so my plants, the root zones, can take advantage.
Thank you so much. The next question comes from Callie Summers. She asks, can you get all of the resources, including like the garden boxes, the plant carts, etc., on the Water University website? This is really cool. And I agree, Dallas works very closely with Agrilife Water University. And we've had just the best feedback, as I know lots of other cities on the symposium today have. So I just want to give you just a minute or so, a couple of minutes, Daniel, to kind of share what visitors to the website can find, kind of what resources are available for them when they visit.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, all that information is there. You can actually go to our product page. We use that to kind of fund some of our other activities that we do. So the plant cards you can buy for $5 at our in-face events. They're $8 online because we have to pay for the shipping cost. And so that's been a really kind of hot seller of late. We're also kind of talking about how we can expand those into other regions. There's folks in Central Texas, South Texas, the Gulf Coast area that have expressed interest. And so perhaps that's something that we could partner on as well. And yeah, all the U-Planet stuff is online. We'd love to grow that program. We have folks that were driving in from 3 hours to get the boxes. So many people, will these plants grow here? And we're like, yeah, certainly they will. And we have the plant list here, and you can take the plant list to your local nursery and probably find the majority of these plants. But folks just wanted it all in a box. They wanted the kind of that no hassle approach with the design. And so, 90% of those plants are adaptable to a larger region of Texas than here in North Central Texas. But we're also open to kind of tailoring that box, where it would focus better at Central Texas, and maybe doing a pop-up where folks pre-order and then we go drop them off on the day. It's kind of a drive-through pickup, so contactless. But yeah, all that information's on our website, along with stuff on drip irrigation and rainwater harvesting, just really any way that you can be efficient in your lawn, landscape, or vegetable garden.
Perfect. Daniel, will you mention once again the charge for the U-Planet boxes? I have a couple of questions coming in regarding those U-Planet boxes specifically in terms of cost.
Yeah, so they're $95. We did have our edible garden was a little bit more just because we did the edible in the shade in the spring. But $95, it's 32 plants that you get, and then kind of the planning guide, the maintenance guide, and then those 3 designs.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next question comes from Paula, the Water Conservation Manager in Houston area, my good friend. She asks, do you have a plant data set selection for the Houston area?
So we don't right now. We do have over 500 plants in our searchable plant database, but most of those we've really targeted for North Central Texas. Now, it's something that we've talked about, and you know, we're wanting to branch out and kind of expand on that plant database, and that's something on the list to do. We also want to have a plant database specifically for rain garden plants and riparian plants. Right now we have, I think, 7 or 8 different search criteria, height, width, some of the same stuff that you see in the other databases, but it would be nice to put a feature on there where we could search by soil type, or heavy clay or sandy soil or soil pH, or even perhaps regional, but we don't have that as yet.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question from Mary Ann Dickinson. Building off an earlier question, has Agrilife estimated any water savings from using compost?
No, I don't know of anything, and I was watching Marianne's presentation, and you know, it kind of clicked with me like, hey, that's something that I need to look into, and it's something that my boss Clint Wolf had really kind of discussed in the past, looking at both compost and mulch and the combination of the two. We do find that in addition to compostability, especially on our heavy clay soils, working like a sponge, holding that water during the periods where we're not seeing frequent rainfall event. Also, compost has the ability to infiltrate more water, where we see a lot of compaction in our heavy clays and that hard pan that sends water off during rainfall events. So I think there's really two components to look at there, and it's something that we definitely be interested in partnering up and kind of digging into in more detail.
Excellent. Thank you. Also, can you talk a bit about rainwater harvesting in North Texas landscapes? We've had several questions about the importance of rainwater harvesting.
Yes, certainly. We are huge proponents of rainwater harvesting. One of the hiccups we've kind of found is, we have demonstrations at Agrilife Dallas here of a water sense level home that I showed a picture of. We have a 2,000 gallon cistern that runs the entirety of the landscape, and several demonstration of 1,200 and 1,000 gallon cisterns that work really well. But it's daunting for people to think about the installation and maintenance of those. Although they're fairly easy, it's just, I think it's a hard kind of hill to get over. So with the rain barrel, it's a small investment, $50, and we pair that with education. So we teach an 1.5-hour long class, face-to-face classes that are actually hands-on. So we feel like we gain ownership when people are actually putting the faucet on, installing the mosquito netting, and focusing on the importance of keeping that water clean and mosquito-free. But so many times we call that the addiction class, because people will get the rain barrel, they'll come back to get additional rain barrels, and then they come back to our large tank class, which is actually a hands-on class. We partner with a lot of community gardens where we actually physically will install the first flush diverter, the pumps, drip irrigation for that 1,000 gallon or 2,000 gallon cistern. And so we've seen a lot of people kind of graduate and do that. But just the way in an average rainfall year our events are timed out, rainwater harvesting really makes sense. And I think it's a great investment. And I just see that the effectiveness of rainwater harvesting just growing in the future, because rapidly growing population, it's going to be more imperative that we reduce demand on municipal supply.
Excellent. Thank you. We have a lot of questions that have come in after your presentation, Daniel. I encourage all of the attendees today to watch the very end of Daniel's presentation for contact information. That's the best way, no doubt, to get a hold of him with all of your questions. I know Paula in Houston is interested in working with you, Daniel, on some of her needs. And I'd like to take the last minute or so for you to be able to talk about Water University, you guys' YouTube channel, where you offer lots of workshops and seminars. And now that we've switched to the virtual format due to the impacts of COVID, just that those workshops and seminars have been recorded. They're available for anyone, because we have lots of attendees today really across the state. And I think it would be good for them to know kind of what's available, but just a wealth of information that you guys share.
Thank you very much, Holly. Yeah, folks can visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Water University. You can also find that information. So Clint has hyperlinked those to our website, which is again, wateruniversity.tamu.edu. A lot of times when we teach a class, we have some of them recorded on our Facebook page as well. You can find us Facebook at Agrilife Water U. But in addition to that, we've done some of our classes on Teams. We could send you the links for some of those classes. Typically, we have them up for 30 days, but we do have some permanently on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. But we're always trying to adapt and be more current with our information. And so when we have a new class that pops up, then we kind of take down some of those old classes. You can definitely, one of the best ways to get a hold of me is LinkedIn. So link me in, Daniel Cunningham, my boss, Clint Wolf, also, who's been a part of organizing this great event. You can connect with him, or you can find me on social media at TX Plant Guy. That's probably the most responsive on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for the wonderful presentation today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I feel like we're getting so many great resources today to help customers do their outside spaces better. That's especially now really what people want.